Seeing the wounded child in the people that matter to you most. What does that mean? It means seeing beyond the surface. It doesn't mean excusing behavior. It doesn't mean allowing others to not treat you well. It doesn't mean not respecting yourself. It doesn't mean not setting healthy boundaries. It doesn't mean not allowing yourself to be free in relationship. What it means is to see that 7-year-old boy or girl in the person that you're with, in the person that you're having challenges with, means to see a fuller version of them. You know, often in relationship, when we meet in this way, when we meet in a way that butts heads, where we're really challenged by the other person, when we experience that, we're not necessarily experiencing that person in the present moment. So what's actually happening is we're experiencing a version of them that's being what we call, quote unquote, triggered. So this person is being triggered by what is occurring in the present moment that is more than likely reminding them of something of their past that was very painful or very difficult. Now, this isn't always the case. Sometimes in the present moment, the behavior and the behavioral interactions that we're experiencing are actually not super healthy, but more often than not, they're driven by unresolved pain, by unresolved, unchecked, unconscious wounding. And so I would remember in my life, and I'm still like this sometimes, I can be very reactive very quickly. And so if I'm feeling threatened, or my ideals or belief systems or my way of being is being challenged, if it's even not being respected, I react in a harsh way. I become agitated, I become annoyed very quickly, I become almost attacking and very defensive. Now, really the present moment very rarely warrants that. What happens is I'm coming from past conditioning and past pain, where I was really harshly judged by my father. I was judged by my father, I was criticized by my father, and so in me, neurologically, relationally, anyone that's close to me, anyone that I have a very intimate bond with, if I feel they are attacking my ideals, if I feel that they are not respecting my thoughts, I immediately go to attack them because of the pain and the hurt that I experienced as a child. And so it's really not me in the present moment that is coming forth and presenting self, but rather there are versions of me tracing back to my childhood that are coming up as a wounded boy, not really knowing how to emotionally self-regulate. As children, we don't really know how to emotionally self-regulate. And so we bring that almost immature, undeveloped version of ourselves into the present moment. So what does that mean for how we interact with people? If you're saying something, if you're expressing your truth, and you are expressing in a non-invasive, non-confrontational way, and you start to notice that the person is becoming really defensive, or maybe they're becoming recluse, maybe they're becoming introverted and closing up and shutting down and not able to actually communicate and express themselves, in that moment, just pause, just observe what is happening. Really ask yourself, is it what you are expressing that is actually causing them to be like this, or how they are interpreting and layering meaning upon what you are expressing? Notice there how there's a difference. In that moment, can you see how people are showing up in the present? Can you see their little boy or little girl? So many of us, not all of us, but so many of us are walking around in an adult body in such a wounded way. And we get confused because we see these adults and we think, oh, well, they're mature. These adults have capacity, they have intelligence, they're emotionally intelligent, they're wise, they know how to communicate, they know how to be in the world. And the truth is, so few of us know how to be in the world when we're really pushed against our edge, when we're really challenged. And when we're challenged, when we're pushed to our edge, when we feel threatened, one of two things will happen. We'll either be able to deal with it in a very calm and very sequential way because we've done work around ourselves. We've looked at our past wounding, at our traumas, at our pains, and we've been able to see ourselves for more than what we actually are. And we've been able to heal, we've been able to heal those parts of ourselves that have been damaged, that have experienced pain, that haven't been able to navigate the world in a healthy way and have been really scared. Or the other way is that we will revert to old reactive patterns that became our coping strategies as children during our developmental years to deal with our stuff. Now, at the time, they were healthy-ish. They helped us survive, essentially. But they're not sustainable, because what they're really doing is suppressing, feeling, and moving through the pain of that moment in order to just deal with it. We just want to survive in that moment. But those patterns of maybe being really defensive and putting up this armor over our hearts, and many men do this really, really well. Maybe that was the go-to strategy. Maybe hiding, maybe physically, emotionally, psychologically, hiding in relationship, that was your go-to strategy. Not having a voice, being really quiet, minimizing yourself, pretending pretending you didn't matter and maximizing the needs of others, making others more important to you. Maybe that was a coping strategy, but that's not going to be sustainable long term. And so here's what happens when you see that wounded child within the people that you're communicating with when you're in challenge, or even when they're moving through heartache or difficulty, is you get to be more compassionate. You get to be more empathetic. You get to see them for more than what they actually are in that moment. And if you are able to see them and be compassionate and come and live and interact with them from empathy and love and patience, they then get an opportunity to deal with their stuff in a very different way, because more likely than not, in the times when they experienced pain, they weren't dealt with in an appropriate and healthy way. They weren't dealt with in a nurturing way, in a way that was mature and embraced them and held them through their struggles. You get to do that. Maybe it's for your partner, maybe it's for your sibling or a loved one, a friend, maybe it's for a family member, and you get to be patient and compassionate with them. Now, at the beginning, that may be really confronting for them because it's not familiar. And whatever's unfamiliar is generally perceived to be unsafe. It's the immediate defensive mechanisms of our brains and our egos, the psychological part of self that identifies with the world. But if you're persistent and consistent with that behavior, with holding them through compassionate, still setting healthy boundaries for yourself, and in order to do that, you've got to know yourself, you've got to do your own inner work, you've got to go through your own healing process, and you get to witness them, you soften. And in your softening, you get to see a version of them and a version of yourself that you've maybe never seen before. Now, how empowering is that? How liberating and freeing is that? Because no longer are you offended, or no longer are you taking personally someone else's pain that they are projecting onto you. Think about that for a moment. Feel that for a moment. Really, really feel that for a moment. Imagine the shifts in relational dynamics that you get to have. Imagine not being so triggered, not being so uptight, not having so much tension in your physical body and in your emotional body. Not being sad and distressed and distraught and disconnected, but rather feeling empowered, feeling open, feeling willing to explore places with another person that you've never explored before. That's where that mutual symbiotic healing takes place. Now, you can't heal the other person, but you can help them heal and they can help you heal. You can help them expand and they can help you expand. You can help open their minds and hearts up and they can do the same for you. And as they continue to witness and experience this compassionate version of self, guess what happens? They soften and they change in their demeanor. Then they're treating you differently as well. So they're showing up with greater capacity in the relationship for you too. So there is something to think about and feel into. See that wounded boy or girl, that 7-year-old, 6-year-old, 8-year-old, 10-year-old in your partner, particularly when you're facing difficulty. And if there's a pattern, notice those patterns, observe. Don't be so quick to judge and try to understand. Just observe. Is there a pattern that's coming up that's maybe pushing you away? What does that mean? How do you want to choose to respond to that as opposed to react to that and come from your own wounding? Because most people, they'll have complementary, unconscious, unresolved wounding meet each other. And you get to break that habit with your awareness. And that's where power comes in. That's the true definition of power, is that awareness of self, then making changes in real time. Power and blessings to you, people. I'll speak to you again soon.